Gold, gold, yet more gold in the fields of one of the poorest countries in Europe, Bulgaria. Incredible hoards of ancient treasure are being unearthed by archaeologists. Dazzling gold wreaths, intricate, spectacular jewellery, all made for the kings of ancient Thrace, some 4,000 years ago. They're just some of an astonishing collection discovered over the past few years. Our arts correspondent Nicholas Glass travelled to Bulgaria and from the capital, Sofia, drove on 200 miles east to the site of the discoveries known as the Valley of the Thracian Kings. Here's his report.
It dazzled the ancients, and it dazzles us still. Gold, fantastically, expertly fashioned. The most spectacular archaeological finds of recent memory are being made in one of the poorest countries in Europe, Bulgaria. Since prehistory, the tribes have worked here in gold, panned from the rivers, mined from the earth. By the 5th century BC, the Thracians, as they became known, were the master goldsmiths of the ancient world, exporting their wares to Troy, Athens and Rome. Little wonder the Romans referred to golden Thrace. We drove out into the Bulgarian countryside, heading for what's called the Valley of the Thracian Kings. The villages here are almost deserted. The young have left, mostly to seek work abroad. What traffic there is mostly horse or donkey driven. The tombs are unmissable, great burial mounds scattered across the valley. We wondered why they hadn't been excavated before. Obviously man-made, they've been here for a couple of thousand years or more. There didn't seem to be a ready explanation. In Bulgaria, it's often difficult to get straight answers. Georgi Kitov excavated a mound here last October. He's been working in the region for over 20 years. Western archaeologists find his methods a little crude. Earth-moving equipment was used, and important archaeological information may well have been destroyed. Kitov and his team were stunned by what they found, a royal tomb. No one had entered here for almost 2,500 years. The great stone blocks would have been quarried several miles away and were probably brought here on rolling logs, but the masonry still looks almost pristine. The passageway, a little more than 30 yards long, led to a burial chamber of a Thracian king. It had been sealed up.
It was one of the longest nights of my life, the most thrilling, exciting, and at the same time, the most beautiful. At the time, we didn't know who was buried here. We pulled down some of the wall, and through the slits in the wall, we saw a round object, which was yellow, and the floor was covered with hundreds of shimmering spots. And then we started arguing amongst ourselves. Was it gold or something else? As a pessimist, I reckoned it wasn't, but I was wrong, and my colleagues were right.
They were able to identify the occupant of the tomb as King Sooths III. His name was etched in Greek on his bronze helmet. They found his gold drinking cup, and they found a wreath of gold. Everything in this tomb was made to measure. The granite, huge chunks of it, and here in the main chamber where the body was, there's a single stone the whole way round. The body laid here, the head here, and the wreath of gold just beyond. And during the ritual of burial, for reasons they don't understand, it was shredded, and the whole place sprinkled with literally leaves of gold. The gold wreath has taken almost a year to restore. 210 leaves, 72 acorns. It's just gone on display in a regional museum close to the dig. They think the silver shell case with gold inlay was the king's jewellery box. And these were the decorations for his horse, bridle pieces and the like. In Thracian culture, the deer was a symbol of the sun and of speed. There is a distinct urgency about all these recent excavations. The Bulgarian mafia has been involved in the systematic looting of tombs. More Thracian gold is stolen than saved for museums.
За да спрем In order to stop this looting, we museum people have taken matters into our own hands. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've managed to raise enough funds over the autumn and winter to make it possible to dig on the more interesting sites in the summer. We've managed a few of what you might call preemptive strikes. You see, in the Bulgarian museum world, we've had to resort to military terminology and tactics.
There are literally thousands of burial mounds, tumuli, across Bulgaria, perhaps as many as 15,000 of them. Behind me, one of them, where the grass has grown up, and one in front of me. So archaeologists here are spoilt for choice. They came here on a hunch. One archaeologist had popped into town to buy cigarettes, and behind the counter he found a woman wearing gold jewellery. She had gold earrings and a gold necklace. She said she'd been given the gold by her husband, and he had been a cooperative farmer on this land.
The farmer made his find as he was ploughing. The nearby frog pool was the site of the most sensational dig in Bulgaria this season, a Bronze Age grave. In March this year they found many gold objects, but also small. They wouldn't have registered a signal on a metal detector, and so were passed over by treasure hunters. Here were beads for jewellery 5,000 years old, and despite their size so perfectly uniform, they could have been made by a modern jeweller.
We expected to find a large quantity of gold objects, but what we actually found overwhelmed us. In 2 nearby mounds last year we found only about 400 objects, but in this mound we found almost 15,000.
There's a bracelet made of little double pyramids, apparently of cast gold, and little whorls of gold for braiding the hair. The head conservator at the History Museum in Sofia has spent months cleaning these beads and has needed a microscope to do so. The ancient goldsmiths were much more sophisticated than she ever realized. She's convinced the beads were mass-produced, minted like coins in their thousands. Some are barely a millimetre across.
You have the impression it's pressed, it's stamped, it's cut, it's minted, because both sides have traces of being pressed with something.
That's astonishing.
Yes, yes.
And astonished you?
Oh yes, oh yes. They turned upside down all my knowledge about the ancient goldsmith.
Bulgarians take great pride in these new discoveries. This is a country waiting to join the European Union. It's desperately poor. The average salary, £100 a month. Post-communism, bribery is a way of life.
In the last few years, life has been hard for the Bulgarian people. People are fed up of listening to stories about murder, robberies and muggings, of drugs and prostitution. They're craving some good news. Archaeology is able to give them some.
Most of these pieces will almost certainly be lent to foreign museums. The French, Swiss and Japanese all want to borrow them. A little bit of Thracian gold has brought a little light into a dark corner of Europe.